Hey friends and family, hey loved ones. How you all doing? How's your heart today? How are you feeling? What's going on in your world? So I wanted to pop on and share a few things, some offerings, and some ramblings. And just whatever wants to be expressed through me in service to all, in service of the whole, in service to love, in service of my soul. So inviting love to be and to be expressed through me in service to all, in service to this one whole. So feeling like super kind of exposed, raw, vulnerable, broken open, and kind of wanting to shrink back from that in certain ways and to protect myself, put that armor or those old clothes back on in certain ways because of the fear of the unknown and this uncertainty and this new initiation into like this unknown territory. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of stuff coming up and just kind of feeling like, I'm tired. Can I just go back to sleep? Can I sit this one out? Can I, just want to check out in a way or escape in certain ways. But, just remembering to breathe and just be here and do the best that I can right now. To be here with me, whatever is going on, whatever is happening, whatever I'm feeling, whatever's coming up from the inside of me or whatever's happening on the outside. Just remember to breathe and call on that inner peace. And it's okay not to know, it's okay to let go, it's okay to be where I am. Here I am. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and we just had our powerful, potent eclipse, our solar eclipse in Scorpio, and lunar eclipse is coming up in about a week or so. It's almost Samhain, this portal of Samhain, this amazing time where the veils are thin, and where we can communicate and open up to having more of those veils fall and communicate with the other worlds and the unseen in different ways. So it should be pretty magical, and I mean it already is so magical, but yeah, there is huge opportunities to receive the truth for ourselves and deepen this relationship, deepen that relationship with the trust and the truth of ourselves. And so there's a lot of things for me coming up around the truth and around trust and letting go and just being. And so I've received like some pretty awesome messages in the last couple days that have come back around for me. And one of those messages was, you don't put new wine into an old wineskin. And why is that? Why don't you put new wine into an old wineskin? And I was a little bit puzzled with that a few months ago when my chiropractor, he kind of gets these little streams and messages and offers them during my little session. And it's always like little things, little nuggets for me to contemplate and to consider and just to allow to percolate. And so on October 25th, I was watching a podcast by Elenbaas, and he was talking about the Scorpio new moon and the solar eclipse and all of that. And it all had to do with like intoxication and wine and those themes, like those Dionysus themes, or the god of wine and all of that. And I think it's really interesting because at this harvest time, grapes are a huge symbol. And also the wine, like the transfiguration and the transformation, and the grapes and the grapevine. And yeah, that religious symbolism that wine, yeah, holds, like in all different kinds of religions and belief systems and certain things. And so it's just something I thought was super interesting because it is emerging at this time where I have been looking into some of those themes of escapism and intoxication and yeah, just altering consciousness or altering our consciousness and desiring to like change the channel that we've been tuned into. Yeah, I feel like it's a totally normal thing for us to want to alter our consciousness or change our consciousness or kind of step out of the everyday grind to open up to something else, to open up to something new. And I have had my own struggles with that in my life, like balancing, like, yeah, with the toxic push and pull or the all or nothing kind of mentality of that. And so I'm just kind of integrating some things and seeing into some things that I've wanted to explore and understand a little more deeply about my own patterns and about my own inherited beliefs and my ancestral patterns. And so, yeah, I thought this was a super interesting thing to look at because it's been relevant for me. It's come up this year in some interesting ways. And I actually did a video or two videos a couple months ago where I was a little buzzed and a little bit like I was feeling pretty good, but yeah, I'm feeling vulnerable and all of that, but judging myself a little bit for kind of showing up and showing like what a hot mess I was, but at the same time like feeling okay that there was room for that. And that's why I posted it publicly, and it was just like, okay, like it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I know this is for me. This is like unconventional, an unconventional healing method. And so it actually reminded me about badger medicine and the sacred clown in certain ways, and just kind of being transparent in other ways too. That and wanting to include like all of me and not separate any part of me from the parts of me that I really actually like and I like others to see. And yeah, there's certain parts that we do like show freely, and then there's other parts that we really, really keep tight, hold on, and we don't want anyone else to see. And sometimes we don't even like to see it ourselves, or we don't like to see these parts of ourselves like that really do like have legitimate places in the whole, and really a lot of gold to hold for our whole soul. But yeah, sometimes we exclude them because we judge them as not as valuable or not as worthy or not as pretty or not as right as the other parts, or less valuable. And so, yeah, just kind of looking into these things. And this has been on my mind all month long. It's a soul collage card that I made. It was one of the first cards I made in 2017 when I started to play with that modality of healing. And I'm so glad that some friends and family introduced me to this amazing Jungian modality, which I've expanded upon, and I've like kind of tailored to my own needs and my own creativity and my own receptivity, so I could have a deeper relationship with all these parts that I had hidden and rejected or denied from myself. And yeah, this was all about the light and the dark in harmony. And yeah, there is some interesting symbols here on this card. And yeah, there's a woman who is dressed in white, and she looks like the epitome of innocence and purity and goodness, and just like that soft, feminine. And it seems like she's just longing and she's desiring for her Prince Charming and for someone to see her for who she is, and just like that long lost love, or that unrequited love, or that love that she is hoping for, that love that she aspires for, that love that she is waiting for. And so, yeah, that's just this image. Yeah, she's in this long white nightgown, and yeah, just her expression. And yeah, it is one of holy desire and holy longing to be whole. And that is like, yeah, that symbolization of my good girl and my purity, my innocence, my good girl, and of everything that I thought I had to be and everything I wanted to be, like to be loved, to receive this love, and to be seen as the love that I am. And then there's a woman dressed in black, and she's got a corset on, and yeah, she's like the femme fatale, and just really secure in her beauty and her sexuality and like her juiciness, her vitality. And there's a key on the top, and it says lip service. So I got it from a lip service catalog. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I when I was making this card, I kind of thought about like blacking that out, but then I was like, no, that belongs there. And so it was like kind of making me think a little bit, like, what do I give lip service to, but I don't follow through with, certain things. And yeah, just a lot of things that I can just appreciate, like, and see for myself. Questions I can ask myself, things I can investigate or look into more deeply within myself. And so, yeah, it's the good girl and the wild child, or the rebel and the golden child. And I always had this conflict between those two, because the good girl, like that version that I held in my head of perfection, of what being good meant, it didn't have enough room to hold all of me. And so I overcompensated in certain ways to protect myself, and took on this rebel form. And because I had experienced like a lot of trauma and a lot of harm and a lot of abuse in my childhood, just through like certain unconscious patterns of this is just the way things are done, and we've got to use force and domination and control and guilt and shame, like to teach you. And so like there was this part of myself that emerged to protect myself, because I just couldn't go along with some of that stuff, to preserve myself. Yeah, this rebel emerged, and to set like certain boundaries, but actually got carried away, and kind of was counterproductive, because I made certain choices that really, really hurt myself, trying to act out my displeasure and my pain of not being allowed to be like full and free and to be all of me. And so, yeah, just looking at those things and reconciling and forgiving and integrating the shadow and the light aspects of the golden child and the rebel, the wild child. And so if there's anything else that wants to be shared about that, and we'll see how this wants to play out and be expressed. And so there's this interesting kind of portal. It's like a bridge almost as well, and I see like that M in there. That is really meant to bring the two together in marriage and in union, and create like some kind of cooperation and some harmony between those like seemingly two opposite sides of myself. And there's a black hat in the middle. And when I made this card, my initial kind of interpretation of that hat was like that I wear all sorts of hats. I can allow myself to play all sorts of roles, and just pay attention when I slip into certain roles unconsciously and what that's creating for me. And there's this chandelier over the left side, which is my wild child, and the right side, there's a key over the head of my golden child. And so, I just thought that was so super interesting that, these messages were received like through receptivity, through creativity, and just letting myself express myself without having to tell myself what it was, but then like kind of reflecting on what the images and the feelings of it, what they brought up for me and everything. And I have written a lot about like these two aspects of myself, and I'm still getting to know them and uncover more and more about these two very important, essential players of the whole for the unity of my own soul, and how they have blessed me, and how they have expressed through me, and how they have worked through me to help me remember who I am and who I've always been and who I want and get to be. And so, I have learned so much through like pain and joy, and through showing up for myself, and those times where I couldn't show up for myself and where I abandoned myself. And so just really amazing things to look at and reflect on and see into. And I was listening to a podcast again from Elenbaas today, and it was about Scorpio themes, and our relationship with the dark, and how it is pretty funny in a way, like why we sometimes either fear the dark, or we glamorize it, or we distort it into something that it's really not, or we exaggerate it so that we can have a relationship with it. And that is interesting too. Like it becomes a caricature of itself. And I've been seeing into that a lot the last couple months, where it is like, oh my gosh, like so much suppression. We've suppressed ourselves so much, and we've suppressed our own truth so much that we actually become like a caricature of ourselves. And it is like almost so like absolutely ridiculous, like how it does like eventually show itself and be expressed because of that denial of it, and then the train wreck that sometimes it becomes, or the hot mess that we're seeing from our own lens. And so it's super interesting. Themes around escapism, intoxication, sleeping, dreaming, and awakening, dying, fermenting, renewing, stewing, surrendering, rebirth, and transformation. So, yeah, stuff about wine. So there's some interesting things about wine, and I'm going to put that link in the description box about the dark red Venusian or Venusian Scorpio eclipse, and how Elenbaas's dream, like, it kind of inspired him to follow some of these themes. And so, yeah, I just think it's pretty interesting. But since Samhain is coming up, and the grapes and wine are a symbol of the harvest, and a symbol of, like, the God that we take into ourselves to connect with, to commune with, to be with, to take into ourselves internally, and to be a part of, or to invite to live through us. And so grapes and wine, I have like some notes on a Samhain board that I made a few years ago. The grapevine is one of the oldest symbols of natural fecundity in the ancient Near East, and still more important symbol of spiritual life and regeneration in both the pagan and Christian worlds. The vine was the first plant grown by Noah after the biblical flood. Its symbolism as a God-given gift accounts for the continuing importance of wine in ritual and in Jewish ritual. Christian symbolism is more specific. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower, says Christ in the Gospel of St. John 15:1. The vine becomes a spiritual symbol of regeneration. Wine is a symbol of transformation because the juice of the crushed grape held the mysterious power to change itself into something more potent and to change those who drank it. This and the blood color of red wine is the basis for its sacramental symbolism. It was made in the Near East at least 5,000 years ago and was regarded as a sign of the vigor of nature and the beneficent spirit animating it. Libations of wine poured on the earth signifies fertility and life after death. The cult god, or cult of the god Dionysus or Bacchus, made wine a symbol of ecstatic union with the god himself. Christianity gave this symbolism poetic force. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood abide in me and I in them. John 6:56. In some images of the crucifixion, the cross itself is transformed into a wine press, the upright post depicted with a spiral thread. A subsidiary symbolism of wine is that it produces truth, either by opening the heart to reason, in a rabbinical phrase, or by loosening the tongues of liars and hypocrites. The Bible takes a fairly tolerant view of wine bibbing as a folly. Noah is shamed rather than condemned for it. Full wineskins are sometimes emblems of sin, and Islam reserves wine for those who have reached paradise, for the Prophet did not condemn wine, only its abuse. In certain contexts, grapes and wine can symbolize drunken folly. So, yeah, I super appreciate that, and I feel like I probably took like a lot of those notes from my Signs and Symbols book, that Sign and Symbols Compendium by Adele Nosdar. I feel like that's probably where a lot of this came from, and appreciated it, and love like all the symbolism and all of the correspondences in all of these traditions. And so it is like a super important crop and substance, like for communing with the divine and for altering like our states of consciousness in certain ways. And what I always found interesting about this was that, yeah, sometimes like when we do like lose our inhibitions, or we can get into like another state, yeah, what actually can be expressed through us in certain ways. And sometimes, like, it's pretty amazing, and sometimes it's just like, it's a train wreck and it's cringeworthy. Um, but it is interesting because it can show us, like, what's been suppressed and what's been ignored and what's been denied within our own selves. And that's what I realized when I was binge drinking many years ago, was that, like, certain stories would come up that I had bypassed. And when I, would get to a certain point of inebriation, that's when, like, these parts that weren't allowed to speak, that weren't allowed to feel, that weren't allowed to be seen, would come up and express themselves through different stories. And I would even, like, kind of be aware of, like, yeah, I would be watching this part of myself, like, telling this story, and in self pity, and even wondering, like, why am I telling this story? Like, it's so it feels so true right now, but I know it's really not. And what is this part of me that's, like, coming through and telling this story? And why does it seem like so important that that this part of me is heard, or this part of me is seen, or, like, what is this about? And so I do feel like, yeah, it is, like, about loosening some of those self-imposed restrictions, and yeah, kind of like looking at what we've disallowed or dishonored within our own selves, and how that's created certain distortions and different things. So seeing more deeply into those things. And I actually do feel like there were other times when I wasn't using it as a crutch or whatnot, and when I would consciously choose after like being in so much pain, causing so much pain and suffering for myself, like just feeling sick all the time, and then having to medicate myself again to cover up that pain. It was like just such a vicious cycle of pleasure and pain, but then it became more pain and less pleasure as it went on, again and again and again. And George Carlin even says something about that. Yeah, along those lines. And so, yeah, after years and years and years of abusing myself, and kind of going cold turkey for a little while, and just knowing that it didn't serve me, and actually kind of going on a path that organically led me to awakening and healing and everything, through meeting a group and a community who sat together for a couple years, and we did ayahuasca ceremonies and stuff. Like, that was, like, easy for me not to have to, like, fall back into in a lot of ways. But then a couple years later, after kind of all of us went our own ways and whatnot, um, just kind of like dabbling back into, like, going out and having a drink with dinner, or drinking for social reasons and whatnot, like getting together, but always, like, being aware, or knowing, like, wanting to know my own limits and pay attention to those limits, because I feel like, yeah, I've abused myself enough, and I don't need to go down that road again, with those things. And yeah, so in 2016, just kind of like feeling, yeah, a lot of things coming up. A lot of hostility, a lot of judgment, a lot of vanity, a lot of pride, a lot of anger, a lot of suppressed feelings, like, welling up from inside, and a lot of trauma and a lot of pain, like, surfacing and wanting to be released. And yeah, it's just like a lot of the things that were going on at that time, in the fall time of 2016, were, like, super triggering and painful, and it was very confusing, and like, but there was also a receptivity for it, because it was like, okay, this is shaking some things up, um what is the opportunity for this time? And man, I guess like it is like something that can help us all wake up, like to our own bullshit and our own power and all those things. And so like I did my best, like with like showing up for me, paying attention to how I was feeling, like asking for help, asking for support, reaching out, all those things. And yeah, doing the best I could to show up and be love for me. And yeah, so it's just like kind of writing and asking myself questions and like there is the standoff like kind of thing and the protesting and like all of the kind of clamp down and absolute dishonoring of life and of water and of people and of livelihood and all of that for self-interest and profit over people, and yeah, those like bottom lines and everything, and domination, control, and force, and all of those things. And there's just saw the abuses and the atrocities of this false authority, and it just made me like just so angry and so inflamed and so like really wanting to hang my head in shame, like for this degeneration of consciousness and this disrespect for life. And was asking myself, how do I forgive this? I'm willing to forgive, but I don't know how. And my angels and my soul were talking to me, and I heard, I heard, like clearly, you can choose to forgive. Just choose to forgive. And so I said, okay, I choose to forgive. I am willing. And that night, yeah, there was a huge weight that was lifted off of me. And so, yeah, just kind of going through like all these changes and like during that time. And yeah, just working with what was and whatever I could choose for myself. And I asked my Mother Earth, what can I do and how can I serve? Like, I don't know what to do anymore, Mother. What do you need from me? How can I show up? I'm willing to give you my life. I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like, please show me what to do. And she said, show up and be yourself. Show up and be yourself. Your love is so needed here. You are so needed here. Show up and be yourself. And so I was just like, okay, but I don't know how to be myself. I don't know how. Like, there's so many layers and so many mechanisms and so many strategies and so many masks and so many layers. I really am willing, but I just don't know how. And so, yeah, just was having this conversation through my heart with my Mother Earth, and feeling her love for me and the love that there always has been for all of us, and the love that she holds, yeah, for all of us and for her whole self, because there is no separation in that. And so, yeah, just around that time as well, like I just felt like, okay, this is all right. This is really messed up right now, and it's really hard, but we're gonna get through it somehow. But yeah, I feel like it was like during the next day or the next couple days or that week, and I know I had a choice, like, yeah, to be there and to be with it. But there was one part of me that was just like, man, I just feel like I really just need a drink. I just need a drink. I just need to change this, like, perception for just a little while, or just like kind of just let go of some things, because yeah, it was just like I didn't know like how to let go of all this tension and all this responsibility that I felt like, I mean, all the pain of the world that I was carrying. And so yeah, I got a message that, yeah, if you want to do that, if you want to choose that, you can choose anything you need for yourself. Just choose it with love and choose it consciously for your whole self. Just set your intentions and bless your choice and receive that choice with love for yourself. And so that was like actually the first time that I chose like consciously to do that without guilt, without shame, and just saying, I know this is a choice, and this is a choice and a gift of love for me that I get to choose. And so like I feel like just it wasn't the actual thing that I was choosing, but it was my intention and what I held around that choice, the feelings and the thoughts, and the belief that I held around that choice, like, was what really opened it up for me. And I received some huge downloads, and it was like unlike anything else I had ever received, and it was just flooding in, and all I could do was like just breathe it in, breathe it out, breathe it in, breathe it out. I saw it like a toroidal field, all of this energy pouring into me, all this information, all this love that was like just waiting for my reception. And because I had let go and just like, decided, that I was just going to trust and just bless the thing and bless all of it and just let it go. And so, all of this information that came in that was showing me how legitimate we really are, and our full legitimacy, like the truth of who we really are, the dark and the light, and how we've been controlled by illegitimate false structures of control, and how we were told and taught to believe that we were the ones that were illegitimate so that this illegitimate structure could take hold. And so I spent the next 2 days filling up a notebook about legitimacy and how we are so legit and all those things. And it first started out as a song, but then it turned into a whole book. And so, just super interesting things like that, where it kind of just showed me, see, it's not like, what we've been taught to judge and see. Like, there is actually a lot more to things, like a lot more to everything, and then when we've been taught to see about it, or to even see about ourselves. And so, that was really eye-opening for me to see that certain things that we've thought were good and like without flaw or anything, like how those things can be used in certain ways to mislead us or to deceive us, and then other things that we've been taught to judge as bad or something to feel guilty or ashamed about, how that can actually help us with like clarity and different things. And so it's not all black and white sometimes, like, and both the dark and the light hold each other, and they wouldn't be able to exist one without the other. And so they're a part of the same thing, but it's all in the way that we use it, and we'll harmonize and balance it within our own inner being, within our self, how we allow it to be expressed through our ways of being and through like our own unity. And so, some fun things like that coming up. And so there's a few quotes that I wanted to share that go along with this. One moment. Yay, intermission. And so I really enjoyed these quotes that Elenbaas shared, and these were my 3 favorites out of the 4. Wine brings to light the hidden secrets of the soul, gives being to our hopes, bids the coward flight, drives dual care away, and teaches new means for the accomplishment of our wishes. Attributed to Horace. Wine makes a man more pleased with himself. I do not say it makes him more pleasing to others. Samuel Johnson, April 28th, 1778. And I thought that was great because, sometimes it is so funny how we don't even realize how intoxicated we are with our own side of things, and our, like certain ways that we just get to be sometimes. And yeah, I feel like it can add to our blindness sometimes, but it can reveal certain truths to ourselves as well. So it is interesting. Wine makes a man more pleased with himself, especially like, yeah, where it's feeling like really good sometimes. But it doesn't always look like that to other people. And so that is kind of humorous to me. Yeah, to each their own, to their own thing. And then wine is a living liquid containing no preservatives, except for now these days, where there's so much preservatives in everything, and all the food that the bodies don't decay like they once did. It's kind of fun to see that. So wine is a living liquid containing no preservatives. Its life cycle comprises youth, maturity, old age, and death. When not treated with reasonable respect, it will sicken and die. Julia Childs. So interesting little quotes about wine. And yeah, how can we apply those to this vintage in our own life that we are making and creating? What's the quality of this new vintage that we have fermenting inside? So wow, processing and feeling into so many heavy things today, but I am so loved, supported, held, and well. And my feelings, as far as I'm aware, are about grieving what is gone and what I wanted to be or what I thought should be. I'm letting go of old stories, memories, pent-up feelings of grief and sorrow for what could have been or should have been or what should already be, LOL. Silly me being so silly. It's okay. I'm seeing into more of the bypassing mechanisms and insecurities, programs, and fears of uncertainty. Letting go of figuring it all out because I'm way too emotionally and mentally, psychically, physically, psychologically tired and fatigued. And maybe over-investing in what no longer works well for me and my energy. And so I can't allow that compassion and rest for myself to forgive, to forego, to forget, and to forbear. Compassion and empathy, mercy, goodwill, trust, faith, integrity, clarity, not knowing, wonder, awe, gratitude, enchantment, healthy detachment, curiosity, and discernment, loyalty, grace, surrender, remember, breathe deep, presencing, engaging, beingness. All this is for me and we, but for the grace of God go I. I can trust myself and all I need for my soul and my fullness. And I can trust others and what they need for themselves and their soul's greatest learning, growth, and wholeness. And just remembering that just because one thing works for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work the same way for another. And that we all have like our own journeys to take and our own phases and stages of growth that are unique and as individual to us as we are to the whole, as we are for the whole. That individual expression and the individuality that we have, celebrating that there's no one like us in the world, and there's no one that can offer or that can express our love like in the ways that we can. And so that's why all of us are needed here, for that diversity and that integrity of the whole. We all have different gifts to carry and hold for the whole, and to develop and to refine for ourselves, our own soul, in service to and of the whole. And so emotional intoxication. Fear is the drug and the mind killer, adrenaline rush, and then a buzz killer. And then there are also small payoffs and dopamine hits related to fantasy idealism, hopium, or self-righteousness, the ungrounded fluffy bunny show of perfectionistic idealism and spiritual emotional bypassing, reinforcing superiority. And so, yeah, romanticization, idealism, avoidance, and distraction. So I'm letting go, letting go, letting go. So, yeah, kind of seeing like how, like in a lot of different ways, in my past, how it was a form of escapism to escape pain and escape what didn't feel good to me, because I was stuffing shoving everything down. I didn't know what else to do with it. And also, like, it was sort of something that gave me permission to feel certain feelings that I didn't feel like I was allowed to feel. And some of those feelings were desire and lust and self-esteem, or that feeling good about me. Like, I don't know why. I don't really know why or where this came from, and why I wasn't allowed to feel good about myself until I was drinking, and then I could feel like, oh my gosh, like, look at me. Like, I'm just so amazing, and just like helped me to be like pleased with myself, and to like kind of let go of that tyrannical guard that lived within me that was always telling me, nope, not that way, nope, not that way. Nope, you can't do that, nope, you can't do this, you can't be that, you can't be this. And then how alcohol would give me the courage or the permission, like, to just be whatever I was. But like how that didn't serve me in a lot of other ways too, because taking it to the extreme in a lot of ways too, like didn't even know where my limits were, or that there were any limits around that until I suffered and suffered and suffered, and then would black out and wake up the next day and be freaking out, like, really, like, what did I do? What did I say? Oh my God, what do I have to fix now? What do I have to smooth over with someone else? Oh my God, and really, really caused me like so much more pain by just like kind of letting go of it all for a couple hours, but then, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like, stressing out later about it when my judge and my tyrant guard came back online, like, to berate me and to shame me. And it was a guilt, shame, fear, desire cycle. And so, it's kind of just interesting to see like these changes and these phases and these stages and these relationships that I've had with certain mind-altering substances and things. And so, it's kind of fun to look at and review and see more into, especially since it's like some of these themes are emerging in the last couple months. And so just, playing with it and being willing to see more into it, and also like choose love and respect for myself and for the gifts that are being offered, and for all the energies that I can work with and learn through. And so escapism, intoxication, romanticization, idealism, avoidance, and distraction. Breathing and receiving consciously through embodiment and a willingness to receive and be. And is there a counterbalance of allowing, is there a counterbalance, like, for focus, of allowing or surrendering to the altering, to this this alternative state of being, and the love that wants to pour through, and wants to pour through you, into you. It's part of you. It's all for you to open to more of you, all of you. Hold the space for all of you. This altering of consciousness. So is there a way to counterbalance rather than just escape and be totally carried away by intoxication? Is there a way, like, to work with this through expanding my reception to other channels or frequencies, letting go of defenses, routine strategies, and opening up to other views, perspectives, and ways of looking at or seeing into things? And so conscious participation, offerings, gifts, well wishes, contributions to the conversation, perspectives, ideas, concepts, symbols, stories, blessings, prayers, inspiration. Alchemy, honesty, transparency, integrity, love is forgiving. So that's something that I super appreciated yeah, it's not the authoritative truth. It's just a contribution to the conversation, like bringing different perspectives and ideas to the table, like to discuss and to look at and to see into and maybe expand on. And so, like, that's what I appreciate, because sometimes we have such limited ideas of what things are because of those descriptions that we're kind of stuck. We've stuck onto the thing that we're viewing, or we've stuck to ourselves, and that kind of makes us stuck in this rut of either or and all or nothing. So love all of you, love all you love, and share what you love. This love is not separate from you. Let it flow through you and guide you and give through you. Let it live through you. And so, yeah, there was another interesting thing that I really enjoyed and taken to heart, as offered by Sara Vrba, and what she had to say about this eclipse window and this period of transformation. And she said, yeah, that there are like different parts of ourselves that we can that are telling us lies sometimes. That's their jobs, to help us remember the truth. And so sometimes, yeah, that voice or that lie is at the forefront of our minds, and it's like taken over because that's the one we listen to the most. And she says we're allowed to disinvite. We're allowed to disinvite those voices, those distortions, those stories, those fears, those complexes that sabotage, undermine, gaslight, or lie to us. And like tell them, you don't call the shots. Thank you. I'm writing my own story. Thank you for your input, but you're disinvited to this party. And yeah, I was just like, oh, so that's not actually rejecting it. It's just saying thank you for your contribution. You can stand back there. Like, yeah, thanks for the input, but that's not true. And so I write my story of my own life. I write my own story. I can choose the story that's true for me. I choose what I get to be and become, who I am, and how I love, and how I show up as the love that I am. And then there is something that I loved from Lee Harris, his offerings from his initiation channeling, the inner fire, like learn, like connect to that, connect to the fire of your own spirit. And how he had said that we shrink and modify ourselves a lot of the time so that we don't make other people uncomfortable or unhappy or displeased with us, because they don't like it and it's not comfortable for them. And so then it's like sometimes it's uncomfortable for us, and it's just like that hasn't really served us very well. And so just clearing the distortions and old blocks. And and then there's one little nugget that I got from Sue Morter yesterday, and I just got turned on to her work last week, I think it was. I had never heard of her, and she was on a podcast with Colette Baron-Reed, and I'm like, whoa, she's been doing this for 10 years, the energy codes and stuff, and I'm so intrigued and fascinated with that. And so I was just kind of watching some of her older podcasts from a couple years ago. And I love her name, Sue Morter, because it just reminds me of mortar and pestle. And what it brings to mind to me is to grind. And it's about the mill and the miller and the psychic processing that we're going through and all that. So I just thought that was great. And she, one of the things that popped out to me, and I'll put this link in the description box, was that she was saying that we're rejecting our own magnificence. And if we reject our own magnificence, we have to reject the other's magnificence as well. And so that made me, think about some things, where I had been rejecting my own magnificence and rejecting life's magnificence, or rejecting the other's magnificence, really, not seeing them as they are. And so super appreciative of all of these things, these messages that I have been able to receive and choose for me, and helping and assisting me with my integrity and my integration and my reweaving of my tapestry for a coherent whole. And so what does my soul want me to know today? To trust. Trust yourself, trust your love, trust your feelings, trust your truth, trust your guidance, trust your inner knowing, trust life, trust love, trust God, trust you. Trust the process, trust in this cycle of growth, trust your presence, trust your love light in presence, trust the changes taking place, trust this healing, holding, and becoming, trust this love for all of you, trust open and let go, trust your heart, trust your soul, trust your intuition, trust your wholeness, all for you, trust your true nature, all your love for and through all of you. Trust the unity of all, trust the vision, trust through all, trust faith, grace, and mercy, compassion, gentle strength, willingness, surrender, receptivity, rest, forgiveness, and reciprocity. Just breathe and be with me. Be free. And so some of the archetypes that were coming up this week in the last couple days: the stranger, the devil, the warrior, the alchemist, the artist, the victor, the creator. Badger medicine, unconventional healing methods. Kali, Sekhmet, Ereshkigal, the protector, the great protector, the fierce mother, mama bear, lioness, lion-hearted, tender mercy. Vajrapani, the wild woman, the rebel, the guardian, the hero, the liberator, the outlaw, the shapeshifter, the magician, the healed healer, the seer, the devotee, the lover, the servant and the master, the friend, the mother, the child, the father, sisters and brothers, allies, familiars, challengers, adversaries, gifts, reflections, catalyzers, blessings, the addict, the prude, the whore, the judge and saboteur, the trickster, the pirate, the thief, the victim, the epicure, the purella, the mischief maker, the jester, the clown, the underdog, the champion, the man of many skills, the jack of all trades, the wise old man, medicine woman, witch doctor, shaman, vampire, fraud, deceiver, truth teller, peacekeeper, steward, cheerleader, nurturer, elder, grandmother, crone, the innocent, the maiden, the youth, and the fool. So, enjoying all of this fun and all of this play and this growing and clearing away of all this old growth and this old debris that no longer serves and no longer frees, no longer is aligned with my integrity and the things that I know to be true for me. So super grateful for the healing taking place and the things that can be transmuted and transformed and healed through this grace and through this faith. If we make the space, make the room and make the space for all things to be. And there was something super amazing that I wanted to share, and I'll probably talk more about next time. But I purchased some tuning forks because I have been nudged to work with sound frequencies, different sound frequencies, and to come back into coherence and full well-being, true well-being. And this is the most amazing things. So it's biofield anatomy, and this was from Eileene McKusick, and I love that. McKusick, that's almost like music. And just so having so much fun with all these words and all of these names and naming and renaming and unnaming things. And so it's just a trip and a half. But it shows the chakra system and these areas after she had done so much research and investigation on how these sound frequencies affect our bodies and things, and where actually we hold a lot of pain and a lot of trauma and a lot of illness and dis-ease, and how they relate to different things. And I'm just so super blown away by all of these things that relate. And there's these trigger points and these pain areas that are related to certain parts of our bodies. And I'll just read a few of these things. X1 relates to things unspoken. X3 relates to sadness and unexpressed Yeah, the sadness that has not been able to be expressed. Defending against negative energy, sadness and anger over lack of support from mother, frustrated, non doing, and held back, not being heard, angry about not being heard, holding back, aggressive action, sadness, anger over lack of support from father, overdoing, overthinking, blocked moving forward, uncertainty, doubt about next steps. So, super interesting about, yeah, those things that relate. And the root chakra is home, family, and security. The sacral chakra is receiving money and pleasure and intimacy. The solar plexus chakra, support from ourselves and others. The heart chakra, the love that we receive from others. The throat chakra, artistic inspiration and channeling. The third eye chakra, things in the back of our minds. And the crown chakra, relationship with the universe and the flow of time. So super interesting. And so I got her whole kit and caboodle, and it came with 2 books. And I just flipped this open yesterday, and it was to page 138, Electric Body, Electric Health by Eileene Day McKusick. Or McKusick. In the early days of biofield tuning, I was consistently finding that most people were running the majority of their energies off their right hips. It baffled me. What I came to discover here over time was one of the most profound and universal imbalances in the field. I mentioned in part 1 that there is a core structure in the biofield anatomy located around 14 to 18 inches off the right side of the right hip. It feels almost like the wheel of a wheelchair spinning parallel to the body. I call it the busy mind wheel. This is something I find in almost everyone, and it shows up as a deep structural imbalance in the energy body. It's the energetic imprint of a mind that runs off like a wild horse into to-do lists. Gotta get it done. Worrying about the future, concerns about what other people think, guilt, self-criticism. And if we move in along that same line of energy to roughly 8 to 10 inches from the body, we find the busybody wheel of constant work, motion, and activity. Because of this dual structure, I call the right hip the hip of chronic overdoing. People who are chronically busy will often end up with right hip issues like arthritis and sciatica. I have seen a ton of clients with right hip replacements and very few with the left hip replacements. There is also a spinning wheel structure that exists off the left hip, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but it tends to be less pronounced. When your mind is racing, it feels like it's happening in your brain, but on an energetic level, it's also happening here off the right hip. We redirect and drain a huge amount of energy off our bodies in this pattern. This is energy that wants to be in the body in circulation, but instead it's siphoned out into this overly yang energy. I gotta stay busy, I gotta make money, I gotta be productive, I gotta run this side hustle, I gotta keep it all together. This has become such a normal way of being in our modern lives that we've lost sight of just how phenomenally dysfunctional it is. Living in a state of overdoing and overthinking is wildly out of balance. It's very linear and goal-oriented. It's a mind that doesn't shut up and a body that can't sit still. I see this imbalance to some degree in nearly everyone. This energy vortex off the right side of the root chakra traps earth energy, or what we might think of as kundalini, and keeps it from rising up and ascending through the rest of the body. Instead of traveling up the central channel the way that it naturally wants to, the energy is getting diverted and going into a spin. This is where the greatest amount of our potential gets diverted. When I do group sessions, it shows up as a collective frenzy of busyness, overworking, productivity obsession, go, 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 do, 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 and chronic stress that leads to burnout. I attribute the universality of this pattern to a deep collective hyperactivity in our culture. While most energetic imbalances are rooted in the individual, and familial, cultural, and societal imbalances make their mark on us too. We exist in the spaces between one another in the collective electromagnetic fields, and we're far more influenced by the larger environment than we tend to think. Whenever I'm in Canada, I always notice how different the people are there, even though they're located right next to us geographically, and our cultures look outwardly quite similar. But the energy of Canadians is so different from that of Americans. The morphic field of Canada informs the humans who inhabit that environment and influences them in profound ways, and the right hip wheel is much less pronounced in Canadians than it is in Americans. So that's interesting. The frequency of capitalist-driven hyperproductivity exists around the world, but it is much more apparent in the fields of folks living in the US. The stress of being a human in modern culture puts us at a pace that's overly young. High octane and cranked up like we've had too much caffeine. Scientists have even found that the human heartbeat, instead of being around 60 beats per minute, has risen to roughly 80 beats per minute. This is not a natural state of being. It's a blind obedience to the hustle that has separated us from our natural flow and expression. A 2019 headline in The Atlantic summed it up well: "The religion of workism is making Americans miserable." So, interesting. And this page, 114, right foot, leaving the known zone. I call the right foot the leap of faith foot. Becoming free in the right foot and also the right knee is about allowing ourselves to recognize and follow the soul's true path wherever it might lead. What is it that prevents you from running in the direction of your dreams and doing all the beautiful things that your soul is calling you to do? Fear is almost always the answer. That is the number one programming that gets stuck in the right foot and prevents us from taking our next steps in life. Fear is a very strong signal jammer. It has a pulsating frequency that tends to block out other signals, meaning it overrides other thoughts and emotions. You can find the frequency of fear pretty much anywhere in the biofield, depending on what kind of experience is giving rise to it. But the area around the right foot is one of the main places where fear builds up and creates a signal jam. It is also a frequency that is very easy to recognize if you know what you're looking for, and it's usually one of the first emotions that my students are able to correctly identify. In the right foot in particular, we're typically dealing with the fear of the unknown. The fear of leaving one's known zone is a programming encoded deep in our nervous system that can often be traced all the way back to birth. Being born is itself a transition. If that transition was painful and traumatic, as it is for many people, then on a deep level, we will hold the belief that transitions are painful. That belief creates a deep fear of taking our next steps and moving boldly into new territories. When we experience painful transitions, whether it's a birth, a sudden or jarring change in family life during childhood, a big move, or an unwelcome change of job or relationship, it creates a tremendous fear of the consequences of taking our next steps. Your nervous system goes into hypervigilance and will tell you that any movement into the unknown is going to bring hurt, that it's not safe. And what makes us feel safe or unsafe plays a huge role in what we choose to do. If your parents passed away when you were a child and you had to leave your home and move in with your grandparents later in life, leaving the home of your known zone is going to trigger a huge amount of fear and trepidation. Even if the known sucks, the voice of fear tells us the unknown might suck even more. We decide to stay with the familiar fear instead of confronting the unfamiliar fear that might lead to our growth or liberation or expansion. Fear is not bad. We're not trying to get rid of it. Fear about taking a leap is normal and appropriate. And contrary to what some people might think, that fear never really goes away. So that's why there's courage and bravery. If you're waiting for the fear to go away before you take whatever step the universe is nudging you toward, you're never going to go anywhere. So you'll never grow or expand in the ways your soul is calling you to. All that unexpressed energy and life force that wants to leap into the unknown will get frozen and tucked away in a little pocket in the lower right foot corner of your field. Fear is the body's way of saying, "This is new and I don't know what's coming. I need to pay attention." You need that vigilance, but you don't need paralyzing fear. There's fear in motion, and then there's frozen fear. Rather than getting rid of the fear, we want to put it into motion. We want to put it in motion. When we move into action, that fear brings to shift into excitement. That fear begins to shift into excitement. The awareness alone that we can live with fear and accept it without having it paralyze us already creates a shift. Those of us who are risk takers constantly take steps that are scary, but we've concluded that the discomfort of the known is more uncomfortable than the discomfort of the risk and expansion. I have found that people who experience a lot of fear around taking risks often had parents who frequently yelled or snapped at them for doing something wrong. When that happens, you can become traumatized around taking action. You begin to associate taking risks with being punished, so you go into inertia mode, but it's deeply subconscious. We want to flex the taking action muscle and align our consciousness with it. If that muscle is flabby and underutilized, you can make it strong through regular small repetitions. You don't make a muscle strong by going from 0 to bench pressing hundreds of pounds. You start with just a few minutes a day of bicep curls with a 2-pound weight, and you work your way up. With very little pain or discomfort, the muscle gets stronger. The trick is to feel the fear, acknowledge it, recognize it, and muster the courage to leap anyway. And if you're not even sure where you're being called to take a leap, your friend fear will tell you exactly where. You can actually use the frequency of fear as a sonar pointing you in the direction of where your soul is calling you to stretch and expand. When you feel disconnected from your magnetic sense, or you've gotten so used to ignoring your internal nudges that you can't even hear them anymore, the louder voice of fear will tell you exactly where you're being called to step into the unknown. So I have been repeatedly terrified by the things the universe has nudged me to do, but I've learned to trust these nudges and do it anyway. When the universe says jump, I jump no matter how scared I am in that moment. To me, that is the secret of living the life of your dreams. Fear can also show up as indecision. We are afraid to make the wrong choice, so we waffle back and forth but fail to jump. One thing to keep in mind around indecision is this. Very often, if you can't decide, you either don't have enough information or the answer is neither of your options, or maybe both. So one thing to keep in mind around indecision is this. Very often, if you can't decide, you either don't have enough information or the answer is neither of your options, or maybe both. When we know, and it is something we determine with our guts, not our hearts or brains. I recently twisted my right ankle while walking across ice, something that I am usually very good at avoiding because my system is generally resilient and responsive. However, I had spent the previous few months uncharacteristically wavering on 2 big decisions with my business. Do I do this or that? Which direction do I move forward in? That energetic dithering created a weakness in the field around my foot, making it less responsive and able to stop the twist, and the resulting injury really flared and forced me to look at how painful that process and one decision in particular had been. Once I acknowledged that what was going on in my mind and my emotions, as well as used the sonic slider on it, the pain and swelling somewhat miraculously disappeared in just a few hours. So interesting that the right foot leaving the known zone, and then the next part is left foot stuck or mired in toxic situations. And so, but I'll just leave it at there for now. And I thought that was super interesting because of what's going on for me, and stretching my comfort zones and leaving all I've ever known and letting go of what I've ever known. And all I've ever known. And being willing to let go. And anything that is mine that is meant for me to embody and carry forward, will be here for me, with me when I need it. Through my beingness. And so there was, one little word that I found this month during October, and it was something I've never seen before, and I kind of super appreciated it. It's a Finnish concept, and it's SISU, sisu, and it's like a perseverance and endurance, a courage and a bravery and determination held in reserve for hard times. And it's the ability to face adversity with courage and determination. So I thought that was super perfect. And I'll add that in the little description box. And so thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I hope all is going well as it can for you, wherever you are. And with all the things you hold dear. And I'm wishing you love and wishing you well, wishing you all good things for your well-being, and all this love, all the love that you can choose for yourself, for your whole self. All right, love you. I'll talk to you later. Take care of you. We'll see you for now.